Really hate when games make achievements that require you to spend days learning some annoying glitches and speedrun tricks just to attempt them. Great idea, 343.
Hi, I'm a frog and a Halo CE speedrunner myself. Whether it's flying a Banshee through the walls on 2 Betrayals or platforming on the ceiling in the Maw, glitches and crazy tricks are a big part of CE speedrunning and beating the game fast. I've gotten a few comments asking about glitchless runs and seen a few other comments complaining about the CE speedrun achievements on MCC and how you have to spend time learning tricks to get them, which I think is funny because yeah, how dare they make achievements that are actually an achievement to get? But more importantly, it raised the question, do you have to learn tricks to get CE speedrun achievements? Could you do it with no glitches? Quick answer for each level is part-time. No, difficulty doesn't matter, so just play on easy and run straight to the end. But what about the Go Roped achievement for beating CE on Legendary in under 3 hours? For that, we're gonna have to do a bigger deep dive. A test, if you will. Can I beat Halo CE on Legendary in under 3 hours without any major speedrun tricks? And to be clear, the title of this video says glitchless, but that's because of character limits. There's other tricks that technically aren't glitches that I'm also not gonna do, so really it's even more than just glitchless. Go Rope takes your best time for each level, so I ran through each level individually rather than playing through the whole game in one sitting. As we go through, I'll mention what glitches and major tricks I didn't do and what I did instead. If there's any section that maybe I don't mention or I go through too quick for you that you'd like to see for yourself, I have a video linked in the description that shows my final run for each level with no commentary. Let's hop in. First off, Pillar of Autumn. Pillar of Autumn has a couple out-of-bounds tricks that you can do, one at the very start called Cryo Bump and one later on called Stair Skip, but I don't do either of these in my speedruns yet anyway, so my Pillar of Autumn for this video is basically just what I do in speedruns. I did do a minor trick at the bridge out of habit where you walk in and walk back out to trigger the cutscene a couple seconds early. This only saves like 2 seconds, so sue me. Otherwise, this level was just throwing grenades, running through areas, shooting some enemies, and not dying.
It looks like
my Pillar of Autumn time is 4:23, which is pretty average for me at this point, but I didn't think it was worth grinding out another few seconds instead of moving on to the next level. Good start nonetheless. So Halo is where things get really different. First off, in an actual speedrun, instead of taking the bridge, you do a grenade jump to skip the bridge and a trigger, which means no enemies would spawn in this area. Instead for this run, I crossed the bridge, which meant I had to fight off a couple Banshees and had an extra Covenant squad to deal with. Nothing too bad, but still a bit of a slowdown. After killing the Covenant at the next area, in a speedrun you'd kill all of your Marines to skip dialogue before each dropship. Instead, my Marines get to live and I have extra dialogue to listen to. I still made sure to clear the ships fast. In a speedrun, if you do everything correctly, you'll hit a trick called drop skip where we go straight from the 3rd ship to the 5th and last ship, skipping the 4th entirely. Because I didn't kill my Marines, in this run I got the extra 4th ship that I usually wouldn't have to fight. After clearing the last ship, Foehammer drops off the Warthog and we're off.
this cave is not a natural formation.
Really? Thanks, Cortana. At the light bridge, I did a Warthog fleeing up the side, my reasoning being that you can instead just park the Warthog and jump on it, so if it's a trick that saves like 4 seconds, who cares? And I activated the bridge without fighting any enemies. Because the area is still deemed unsafe by the game, I also don't have to watch the unskippable bridge cutscene. For Go Rope, that doesn't matter because cutscene times aren't counted anyway, but still worth mentioning. Next up, we get to the second half of the level where there's 3 different areas where you're supposed to save Marines. In a speedrun, we instead just kill all the Marines at the first 2 areas before saving the 3rd. The reason being that if your Marines are dead, the game just lets you progress anyway. So again, killing the Marines technically isn't a glitch, it's just something the devs didn't actually expect you to do. Nonetheless, I decided not to kill the Marines and actually try to save them because what the heck, why not? Cliff is probably the toughest of the 3 areas because there's a ton of Covenant spawned when you first show up. I also got rushed by a few elites, which I was not at all ready for. The second area at the rocks is extremely easy because you can just run over the Covenant as they get out of the dropships. The third area, at River, we do legitimately in runs anyway, so I've had practice at. It's not too bad regardless, and that's Halo in 1650 without the bridge skip or drop skip and with saving the Marines instead of killing them. Easy enough, now for a level I was a bit worried about. Truth and Reconciliation starts off about the same as in one of my speedruns. I snipe a couple elites, then run by the first area, grenade some enemies, and then run and gun through the second area. At the third area, there's an active camo you can pick up to run past some more enemies and be able to stealth kill most of the enemies at the lift. On the lift waves themselves, they weren't the cleanest I've ever had, but they were still pretty good and I'd be happy with them in a run. 2 hunters come down, bam bam, and we're into the ship. In a normal speedrun, we would do a trick called belly skip to clip into the Wraith, warp up on top of the map, and platform out of bounds to skip a few minutes of the level, dropping back in shortly before the hangar. I didn't do that in this run, obviously, so instead I did the wave fight. On Legendary, there are 10 waves, some of which randomly have gold sword elites. The strategy here is pretty simple. You just run up to each door and try to take out each wave as fast as possible to avoid getting surrounded. After clearing each wave and taking out a couple hunters, I grabbed an active camo and made my way to the muster bay, which we call the RNG room. Only the Covenant can open the doors to progress, and you're supposed to do another wave fight, but instead I baited an elite into opening a door for me. Next up was the hangar. Normally in a run, we would do a grenade jump called quad stack, which takes you from the bottom floor straight up to the top floor, plus lets you keep the overshield. I think the hangar fight is definitely the toughest fight of the level, especially without Marines. Enemies come at you from all sides, plus there are enemies on the second floor shooting down at you, so it's pretty easy to get overwhelmed. I had a really close call with the charging elite. After clearing the enemies and taking out a couple hunters, I was able to move on. Nothing really eventful happened as I made my way up through the floors. I just killed enemies and tried to conserve sniper ammo. There's a few different times where the game spawns enemies in front of you and behind you to try to ambush you, but I played this level a ton casually, so I was ready for all of them. From there, I cleared the bridge, ran through some hallways, cleared the brig, and found Captain Keyes. The Keyes escort at the end of the level is pretty terrible, as you may know. Keyes is an idiot, and he'll shoot you in the back and throw grenades at his own feet and kill himself. There's a lot that can go wrong. The basic strategy here is to just stay far ahead of him and kill all the enemies along the way. After clearing the bridge, I got to sit through a whole bunch of dialogue. In a real speedrun, the level would have ended by now because of the grenade jump earlier breaking triggers, plus we would have made Keyes mad at us to skip the bridge dialogue. After the dialogue, more grunts spawned and Keyes died because he stood right by a grenade instead of moving away. Classic Keyes. I made it try 2 though, and we moved on to the hangar, killed some more Covenant, and that's Truth and Reconciliation in 1946. This level, believe it or not, I did on my first try, but the next level took me a couple, but not for the reason you might think. Silent Cartographer starts with the iconic beach fight we all know, which I skip by running the opposite direction. In a speedrun, we'd grab an overturned Warthog, drive into the facility with the Silent Cartographer, fling through a door, fall down below, grenade jump back up, and be done with the level in about 3.5 minutes. In this run, I got to the overturned Warthog, but actually had to start killing enemies and making my way through the beach. After getting to the structure on this part of the island, I hit the button to disable the security and open the door at the other facility we'd normally Warthog fling through. I went back down to the beach, grabbed the Warthog, and drove into that facility like I would in a speedrun, except the door was open so I could just get out and walk through. As I walked through the facility, I realized something. There were no enemies. Turns out I accidentally despawned every enemy, which apparently you do by entering too fast, which I must have done by driving in with the Warthog. I finished out the level just cuz with an 11:26, but I decided to run through it again, this time without despawning any enemies. I did everything prior the same, just cleaner now that I'd done it before, and this time I got out of my Warthog before entering the second facility and walked in so I'd get enemies. From there, it was just fighting my way down to the bottom to activate the Cartographer, then working my way back up and grabbing an active camo to let me run past a lot of it. After killing some stealth elites, I beat the level this time, slower, but still with a 12:04, the time will be counting. Next up, the level with the biggest disparity between a speedrun and my time for this video. Assault on the control room started for me like a normal run, with me running through the first hallway and the first big room before coming to the bridge. In a legendary speedrun, we would do a trick called Banshee Grab, where we basically just manipulate the Banshee pilot into flying a certain way so that he gets ejected, and we can simply jump in the Banshee ourselves and fly through the level. And if you do this and don't cross the bridge, 0 enemies will spawn the remainder of the mission. For this run, although it pained me, I sadly just had to shoot the Banshee and blow it up so it wouldn't kill me. For the rest of the bridge and the next couple rooms, I didn't do anything too spectacular. I just killed enemies and made my way through until I got outside. Once outside, I grabbed a sniper, so I had Sniper Magnum, got in a Warthog, and got the heck out of there. If you wanted to be as fast as possible, you could take the Warthog here, but I have 0 practice doing that and knew I had plenty of cushion from the 3-hour mark, so instead I took the tank and pretty much just played all this exactly how you're supposed to. In the underground section, I did get out and start sniping because the tank in CE is garbage and doesn't shoot straight. I also had a death a bit later on because a grunt decided to be a jerk. At the end of the tank section, there's an active camo you can pick up to run past the entire next area and go back inside your room that has a bazillion sleeping grunts. In the next room, I got jump scared pretty hard.
Hello there.
Back outside on the set of bridges, there's a pretty simple jump you can do to get across and skip a decent chunk of fighting. I felt at liberty to do this because it's not a glitch, it's not really a speedrun trick considering in an actual run we just fly the Banshee to this point with 0 enemies spawned in, plus it's something simple that literally anyone can do with 0 practice. Speaking of the speedrun, in a speedrun we would have flown our Banshee inside the next room and done what's called a Banshee teleport, where we melee the Banshee in precise spots and move under in specific ways to get teleported all the way to the ice bridge before the control room. Instead, I had this room to fight through, a long hallway with stealth elites, then another room to fight through with hunters, and a bunch of jackals and grunts that spawn in after. Out on the ice bridge, I sniped the elite that's supposed to get in the Banshee and took off. In a speedrun with this Banshee, we do another Banshee teleport to get us from outside the control room straight to the button for the last door. Instead, here I had to open the first door and fight a bunch of Covenant. Afterwards, I flew to the end, and that's assault on the control room in 22:38, the longest thus far. So halfway through the game, we're at 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 41 seconds. We're on pace, but if you played CE, then you know we've got some long levels coming up. To start 343 Guilty Spark, I went left instead of right. We would normally do a grenade jump here. Instead, I went a bit further and jumped on a rock and up to get to the facility faster. This is technically a trick that saves maybe a minute of walking and fighting, but it's literally just jumping on a rock and doing one more easy jump after, so I think it's fine. Inside the facility, after the elevator, in a normal run, we would do a trick called Reveal Skip. This involves doing a grenade jump in a certain spot that lets us get inside the floor, and with some weird platforming, we're able to get inside a room that's supposed to be locked until after the flood reveal when you come back to the start of the facility. Instead, I got to make my way through the structure the old-fashioned way, checking out all the creepy sights, saying howdy do to the crazy marine, and seeing the flood reveal room. The reveal fight is easy, you just AR the infection forms and let them jump on you, then when combat forms finally show up, you can get them easily with a grenade. I did a video a few months ago ranking CE's levels by difficulty, and I had this as the second easiest because if you know where to go, I think it's extremely easy. And I was able to run to the room we would normally skip too easily. After the second elevator in a normal speed run, we would grab an active camo and do a trick called Camo Jumo. This jump lets us skip enough that we can make it basically to the end while still camouflaged. Instead, I grabbed an overshield, then camo, then jumped down and started looking around. There's always a shotgun flood in this room, so my priority was finding him and taking his shotgun before moving on to the next room. Once you get the shotgun, the flood are very easy to deal with, so from here it was a breeze. I did have to go through a room that I normally wouldn't have to in a speed run, plus I had to do more combat in the rooms we do usually run through, but like I said, the CE shotgun is OP and the flood stand no chance. In the last room, you're supposed to activate a light bridge which spawns a whole lot of enemies on the other side and in the elevator. In a speed run, there are a couple different tricks you can do to avoid activating the bridge. The first is called Subnade from the bottom floor, where you do a grenade jump up to the elevator. The second is called Double Jumo, where we do the same jump as Camo Jumo to get across. Whichever one you do, 0 enemies spawn in the elevator room because we didn't activate the bridge. For this run, I did activate the bridge, and to take care of the flood, I abused grenades. And just like that, we're out of the facility. At the very end of the level, a couple sentinels spawn with a monitor, and strangely the level end trigger is tied to the sentinels dying. So like we do in a speed run, I grabbed a plasma pistol and helped the flood take out the sentinels because I thought the alternative of hiding and waiting for the flood to do it for me was stupid. And that's 343 Guilty Spark in 9 minutes and 42 seconds. Like I said, I think it's one of the easier levels. Next up, well, you already know what's up next. The library, everyone's favorite level. Especially you, person who's in the middle of typing a comment that says, am I the only one who really likes the library? This one I did have to restart on a few times at the very beginning. I think the opening is the toughest part of the entire level. That could just be because in the speedrun we do a grenade jump at the start to skip spawn triggers and do a flood bump through the first door and basically skip all of this. So it could just be because it was a section I was the least familiar with. But similar to Guilty Spark, the first thing I wanted to do was ID a shotgun flood and take their shotgun. And what I figured out in this opening is that you should just take your time instead of trying to sprint through everything. That's what I was trying to do at first, and I was getting obliterated. Once I got past the first door, the level got much easier for me because, like Pillar of Autumn, this is where the level becomes mostly the same as in a normal speedrun. All I had to do was run through hallways and shotgun flood. There is a spot on the first floor with an overshield and a hole that I picked up and grenade jumped out of. That's kind of a trick, I guess, but you could also just run out, so... The first floor ends with a grenade that's pretty satisfying, and that's floor 1 of 4 done. At the start start of the second floor, we come to a door where you're supposed to hold down at while spark flies away to open it. In speedruns, there's a trick called carrier bump where you grenade a carrier close to the door, stand on one of its legs, and can be bumped into or through the door and skip past it. This trick has about a 15% chance of working though, so you usually only see it with the top runners. In this run, I did what I normally do in runs, which is stand back a bit away from the door because for whatever reason, no flood spawn if you're far away enough from the door. After the door opens, I walked a bit of a weird path along the inner ring of the chamber until I got to another door. We would normally grenade jump through this door, but instead I waited at it. A bit further on, still on the second floor, we get to carrier hallway where there's a rocket flood and a ton of carriers. I had a death here. My second run through, the rocket flood tried to one-shot me, but missed thankfully, and I made it through, although there is still a ton more flood waiting for you when you're around the corner, so the rest of this hallway is scary too.
The installation was not conceived. It is surely the only way to end the flood threat.
I made it though, and that's 2 floors down. The third floor starts off strong with us going through what's called Cancer Hallway before getting to another locked door. We call this one Dark Door. In a normal run, we would do another flood bump here to skip the door, but this isn't a normal run, so I held out instead. This door is really easy to hold out at anyway. A bit further on, we come to another door. You will never guess what we do here in a regular speedrun. Wait, what? A flood bump? No. Are you stupid? We actually have a trick called light bump where we clip into a door, get teleported up, platform onto the ceiling, and teleport ahead past the door. This door takes 90 seconds to open on legendary, so light bump is massive time save. I didn't do that, and instead what I did was sit in the corner where the flood couldn't see me and wait for it to open. Exciting stuff. Then with a sprint to the end, that's the third floor. The last floor is pretty short. We run through a large hallway, go through another enclosed hallway, wait out another door, and run to the last door. Usually in a speed run, we would grenade jump through this door as it's opening and make it almost all the way to the end before any flood spawn. Instead, I had to wait for it to open, make sure to kill the flood in my way, and that's the library in 1923. Next up, the hardest level in the game. 2 Betrayals, as we all know, starts out with you immediately being shot by sentinels, but this and the next room I deal with all the time, so easy peasy. This is where we diverge though. In a speedrun, we would do a trick with the door called a deload. Basically, we hit the button to open the door twice in a way that makes it so the door still opens, but the game thinks it's closed, meaning no enemies spawn except 2 jackals and 2 elites that are pre-spawned. Instead, I had to just open the door and fight my way down the pyramid, which I hadn't done in a while. There's a hidden ammo cache with shotgun ammo, a sniper, health pack, and a magnum, which I picked up because I remembered there'd be a ton of elites at the bottom of the pyramid. Once I made my way almost all the way down, I started juggling a plasma pistol and my shotgun, then once at the bottom I simply noob comboed all the elites. There's also rockets below to take out the Wraith. It took me a few more minutes than usual, but I was now in the Banshee. The phase pulse generator is easy enough to hit and run out of, and we're gaming. This is where the level diverges greatly from the regular speedrun. In a speedrun, we would do a trick called Banshee out of level, or Bull, that basically just lets us fly through the level in a Banshee while it isn't loaded, letting us fly through walls and wherever else we want. Obviously, I didn't do that in this run, so I made my way through, clearing each room the old-fashioned way with my shotgun and rockets from earlier. Also worth noting, there is a classic speedrun route for this entire level from before Bull, but I'm not really good at anything in it, so I just opted to take my time through these rooms instead of trying anything fancy. One of the toughest sections is on the first bridge. Now, you may wonder on these bridges if you can do the same glass jump across as I did on Assault on the Control Room, and you can, but the issue is that in 2 Betrayals, you have to hit every trigger in order to progress through and complete the level. So here, you have no choice but to go all the way across the bridge and come back around. This room in the classic speedrun is called the Hell Room because there's a ton of flood. Again, there is a fast way to get through here that involves sneaking past and then getting chased by this army of flood, but I instead just decided to take my time clearing it. There's a rocket flood at the end of the next hallway that I tried to grenade and missed, but thankfully he didn't punish me. The next room is easy, then we're back outside of the second bridge. This time there's 2 Banshees in the air and a lot more flood to deal with, including not 1, not 2, but 3 rocket flood. After taking out the second Banshee, one of the 3 rocket flood tried to rush me, but I was able to take him out before he nuked me. The second rocket flood I grenaded, and the third I was able to just shoot as well. Back inside, there's another easy room, an elevator down, another easy room with a grenade jump I didn't do because I'm terrible at it, and we're outside. I got obliterated my first attempt at getting in the Ghost. My second attempt, I got it and drove past everything, got in a Banshee and flew past everything and into the second phase pulse generator. This room is also scary because there's more rocket flood, sentinels, and a lot ton of grenades all over the place, so it's pretty easy to get blown up. There's a risky exit here you can do, but again, I just played it safe, exited, and flew down the tunnel. One little piece of advice for flying through here is once you get past the Covenant, start shooting. There's a few rocket flood and shooting alerts them to you, and they shoot the rockets at you earlier, making them much more likely to miss. Next, I got to the broken door. In a speedrun, you would do bull past this door, but even if you don't do that, you can actually get the Banshee through the door and be able to fly through the rest of the level, which shortens it by quite a bit and makes it way easier. For this run, of course, I did not do that, and I proceeded on foot. Due to my speedrunning though, I knew where most of the flood coming up would spawn, including rocket flood, and was able to spawn kill most of them. After progressing further, I made it to the final run. I had full rockets, but I was really low on shotgun ammo. So after taking out the first group of flood and a Banshee, I let the Covenant and the flood fight it out a bit before I started firing rockets at the Covenant. I should have waited longer because come to find out, there were a lot more flood than I thought. One of these last flood has rockets. I'm out of shotgun ammo and have one rocket left. If I can kill him and take his rockets before he kills me, I'm good. Oh no. I have absolutely no idea how I survived that. From there, the level's easy enough. You just drive past everything, get in a Banshee, then activate the last phase pulse generator, and that's 2 Betrayals in 26 minutes and 50 seconds. That's, in my opinion, the hardest level in Halo CE. Next up though, another level completely different than the speedrun. Keys is a really tough level. Thankfully, in the speedrun, we skip the cutscene at a certain time and do specific inputs to make this flood at the very start a reviver, which we can then use to bump through a wall and get pretty much straight to Keys, skipping almost the entire mission. Not being able to do that in this run meant I actually had to play through the entire level, which I think has the toughest set of encounters in the whole game. 2 Betrayals I would still say is more difficult overall, but that's because it's a lot longer than Keys. Before you fall out of the ship, there's an active camo you can pick up, so I grabbed that and was able to run past the first outside section and most of the second section before having to grenade a few flood. This area has a ton of carriers and it's easy to blow yourself up, but after you pass a certain spot, all the flood here despawn, so I just pushed through until they disappeared. This section has one of 2 infinite flood spawners in the game with the carrier forms. There's plenty of other spawns that feel infinite but eventually run out. Here at this spawn, they actually do never stop coming. So after sniping most of the Covenant, I ran through. The next couple areas I think are easy. They are creepy though. This level always scared me the most when I was a kid. After clearing out the lift, I was back in the ship. There's not really anything interesting here for me to talk about. I just took my time going room from room, clearing out all the flood and Covenant until I got back to Keys. After turning Keys' head into soup, you can quickly escape by tossing a grenade and running by the Spec Ops Covenant in the hallway, then dropping down in the hangar and getting in one of the Banshees. Keys is a really tough level, thankfully really short though, and my time was 12:49. That's 9 levels down and 1 more to go. I actually had a ton of resets at the start of the Maw. Not because it was difficult, but because I kept accidentally skipping a spawn and wasn't able to do this cool shotgun grab. With this run, since I finally did get the shotgun, it was showtime and I continued on. Normally at this point, we would do a bump out of bounds using the door that the flood bash open. From here, we can platform all the way past the cryo room, skipping a few minutes of the level. Instead, I did some old-fashioned running past enemies, clearing the bridge, killing some more enemies, and running past some more. For reference, everything up to this point would have been skipped by doing the out-of-bounds platforming. After running around this hallway, called Hunter Hallway, I went to the armory and grabbed rockets. In the reactor room, we would usually do a grenade rocket jump to get all the way up. Not only does this get us up faster, this also allows us to time the reactor so we can take out 2 at once on each side without having to wait for any. This makes the room faster, obviously, but it also makes it way easier because the longer you're in the reactor room, the more stuff spawns and the harder it gets. There's an easier grenade jump you may have seen before as well, but this also lets you get the timing on the reactors, so although simple and easy, I would still consider to be a speedrun trick. So I ran all the way around and did the reactors how you're supposed to. The first reactor was fine, the second reactor completely trolled me.
Grenade or rocket. If you run out of explosives, there is an armory station located near the engine room's entrance.
Whatever, it happens. Then the third trolled me as well. As annoyed as I was able to regroup and recover though, and I took out the fourth despite the room becoming increasingly demonic. Here's a cool strat on the elevator.
Lift at the top of the engine room. It leads to a Class 7 service corridor that runs along the ship's dorsal structure. Hurry!
And with that, it's Warthog runtime. This I have a lot of practice with and know where to go, so I didn't flip or get ejected or anything. I did drive past Fohammer's death though. Rip in peace. I knew I had some time to spare though, so I made a pit stop along the way.
Good thing that food nipple's waiting for me at the starship. Cause, man, if I worked up a big, crunchy thirst!
After hitting a 270, I made it to the end where I ran onto the ship, and that's the Maw in 10:39, and more importantly, the whole game in 2 hours, 35 minutes, and 4 seconds, beating our goal of 3 hours. So what does this mean? First off, the obvious, the Go Roped achievement is completely possible even without knowing speedrun tricks. If you know the game well and you're good at it, it may take you a few tries, but you can get through every level just fine. And if you can't, learn a couple tricks. Learn Banshee Grab and Assault in the control room. It turns it into a 5-minute level. Or the Keys Flood Bump, which turns Keys into a 2-minute level. See where you're at and learn whatever you need to get below the 3-hour mark. Or if you don't want to, then just get better at the game until you're able to get it. In other words, this person and anyone with the same complaint simply has a skill issue. If you're interested in Halo CE speedrunning, I did a video on the entire history of CE speedrunning, including how tricks were found, which you can click now on screen. And with that, I'll catch you next time.